Hello, I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. Welcome back to A World Gone Mad, and it's time for another Monday Fallout. The headlines are radioactive, the truth is buried in the rubble, and I'm here to dig it out. Systems are breaking, trust gone, power plays everywhere. Okay, here we go. Washington takes center stage where Trump is strutting like an international deal maker who just found another property to flip, while Zelensky fights to keep Ukraine off the clearance rack. Now, Europe's leaders line up behind Zelensky, smiling for the cameras, but bracing for the moment democracy gets treated like a bargaining chip. Washington is the stage this week, and what's being floated is nothing short of a sellout. Trump is parading around like some master negotiator, but what he's really doing is treating Ukraine like a distressed property deal. A piece of Donbass here, a slice of Crimea there, move in ready, cash only. That's not foreign policy. It's a fire sale. And behind this nonsense is the rotten idea of land for peace. Let's call it what it is. Russia invades, kills civilians, flattens cities, and then gets rewarded with the territory it stole. That's not peace. That's armed robbery with a smile and a handshake. It's extortion elevated to international diplomacy. Putin couldn't ask for a better accomplice. He launches an illegal war, commits atrocities, then sits back while the so-called leaders of the free world argue about how much of Ukraine they're willing to carve up to make the problem go away. It's as if the free world is bargaining with a burglar. Keep the rooms you already broke into, and we'll pretend the robbery is over. The logic collapses under its own cowardice. The logic is obscene. And then there's that poison pill, this whispering campaign that Ukraine should never join NATO. Think about that. A country gets invaded, and the punishment is, sorry, you don't get protection. That's like punishing the victim of a mugging by telling them they can't walk with friends anymore because it might upset the mugger. The intelligent people know this. It's not Ukraine's NATO bid that destabilizes the world. It's Russia crossing borders with tanks and missiles while Western leaders continue to stall for time. Now, Zelensky is standing in Washington fighting not just for his country's survival, but for the principle that sovereignty actually means something, that borders aren't suggestions, that if you defend democracy, you don't reward the autocrat who tried to crush it. Yet here we are, watching Trump smirk, Putin calculates, and European leaders smile for cameras while quietly wondering how much resolve they really have left. If Europe backs down now, the rest of the world is in trouble. Here's the bottom line. If this summit produces anything resembling land for peace, it's not a breakthrough surrender. It's not a breakthrough at all. It's just total surrender. And the precedent it sets will echo far beyond Ukraine. It tells every authoritarian out there that you can redraw the map with violence, and eventually the world will shrug and let you keep whatever you stole. That's not compromise. That's cowardice, plain and simple. And this is where Trump shows exactly why he is unfit to be anywhere near power. This isn't strategy. It isn't leadership. It's a man playing games with people's lives like they're chips in one of his bankrupt casinos. He cozies up to Putin, one of the most brutal tyrants on the planet, not because it serves American interests, not because it protects democracy, but because it feeds his ego and makes Trump feel important. Trump doesn't give a damn about sovereignty or freedom. or the cost of this war on ordinary Ukrainians. He cares about the photo op, the applause, the validation that comes from standing shoulder to shoulder with strong men. He isn't negotiating peace. He's selling out democracy, bending over for a dictator, and asking the free world to join him. It is cowardice. It is corruption. And it is a betrayal of every principle America is supposed to stand for. Meanwhile, Trump's out front haggling over Ukraine like it's a liquidation sale. But while he's playing dealmaker abroad, the weekend script here is shifting. Marines headed to the Caribbean, additional National Guard shipped into D.C. by Republican governors. This isn't diplomacy. It's dress rehearsal for something darker. That's how I see it. So let me break this down. More than 4,000 Marines and sailors are being deployed to the southern Caribbean, along with a submarine, spy aircraft, and destroyers. Supposedly it's about combating drug cartels. Right. Because that's the problem, suddenly keeping Trump up at night. Not the fact that cartels have been pumping narcotics into the U.S. for decades. Not the money laundering banks. Not the fentanyl pipeline. Nope. Now in the middle of an election season coming up, midterms, and an international standoff, suddenly the Marines are going to clean up cocaine. Sure. This isn't about drugs. This is muscle flexing. It's projecting force near Venezuela, near Latin America, in waters where we've staged coups before. It's a show of power dressed up in law and order clothing, like sending in Batman to bust jaywalkers. It makes no sense unless the real goal is intimidation. And here at home, 3 Republican governors, West Virginia, Ohio, South Carolina, the governors are shipping at least 700 National Guard troops into Washington, D.C. They're not there to hand out water bottles or fix potholes. They're armed. They're stationed in the nation's capital as if D.C. is some unstable colony that needs policing. So ask yourself, why? What's the justification? Is the capital under siege? Is Georgetown overrun by soccer moms rioting over pumpkin spice shortages? No. This is about building the visual of control. Soldiers in the streets, uniforms in the Capitol, the message that power doesn't just speak, it shows up with rifles. Put the two together. Marines abroad, guards at home, and you see the outline of a president who isn't just playing global negotiator. He's staging war games, foreign and domestic. Abroad, the justification is cartels. At home, the justification is public safety. But both lead to the same place. Normalizing the sight of armed forces moving where they don't belong. And that's the darker part. Because once people get used to Marines off Venezuela and the National Guard in D.C., the next deployment doesn't feel shocking. It just feels routine. And that's how you slide from democracy into something else. Not with a bang, not with a coup headline, but with one training exercise at a time. The weekend was already a full-blown power trip. Troops abroad, more National Guard sent to Washington, D.C. But ICE wasn't about to be left out. They grabbed a 7-year-old girl because apparently crayons are now a threat to national security. Here's what happened. A mother, her teenage son, and her 7-year-old daughter showed up for what ICE calls a routine check-in at Federal Plaza in New York City. And instead of walking out, they were split up and shipped off. Mom and daughter sent to a reopened family detention camp in Texas. The son dumped into a youth facility in New Jersey. Because that's how family values work in Trump's America. You keep the family together right up until you don't. And they call it routine. Routine, like brushing your teeth, like taking out the garbage. Only in this case, the garbage is a 7-year-old girl and her mom. Let's be honest. There's nothing routine about this. You don't target a second grader for national security. You target her because it sends a message to immigrants: show up for your check-in and you'll never see your home again. To Trump's base, see how tough we are? We're not just locking up adults, we're locking up their kids too. And to the rest of us, get used to it. This is how we govern now. What's even more grotesque is the hypocrisy. The same MAGA crowd that screams about tyranny if you ask them to put on a mask in Target. Silent when the government locks up a little girl. Silent when mom and daughter get a one-way ticket to detention camp. Silent when family separation isn't an accident. It's policy. This isn't security. This isn't law enforcement. This is cruelty. Shrink wrap this policy. Trump doesn't care about the border. He cares about the show. ICE doesn't care about safety. They care about the fear. And the MAGA faithful? They care about cheering cruelty as long as it's not happening to them. So let's call it what it is. If you could normalize locking up a 7-year-old girl with her mom, you could normalize anything. Today, it's an immigrant family at a check-in. Tomorrow, it's whoever else this administration decides doesn't belong. And the day after that, we're all supposed to shrug and call it routine. Routine. That's the word they want you to swallow, but don't, because there's nothing routine about putting a little girl and her mother in a detention camp and shipping the son off. That's not order. That's not justice. That's Trump's America, and it's rotten to the core. So step back for a second. In one weekend, you've got Trump floating away pieces of Ukraine like it's a yard sale, Marines steaming south like we're revving up for another Latin America adventure, and ICE hauling a 7-year-old girl, her brother, and her mom into detention. That's not 3 separate stories. That's one story. It's the same story. Power being used not to protect people, but to show off control, to remind you who's in charge. Power being used not to protect people, but to show off control. It's the flex. Abroad, at home, on families, on kids, doesn't matter. The message is the same. We can do this, and you can't stop us. And that's the real danger, listeners. Because once you normalize it, once the fire sale in Ukraine looks like diplomacy, once Marines on the doorstep of Venezuela looks like policy, once a child in custody looks like routine, then democracy isn't democracy anymore. It's stagecraft. It's intimidation dressed up as governance. This is what Trump and the MAGA movement are selling. Not leadership, not security, not even stability. They're selling cruelty as strength. They're selling fear as patriotism. They're selling you a country where rights are optional, laws are props, and compassion is a liability. So circle that in red, listeners. This is America under Trump. If you're not shocked, you're asleep. If you're not angry, you're numb. And if you think it can't get worse, trust me, they're already planning the sequel. You could call me at 833-399-9653, 24/7 free voicemail box. Leave your thoughts. Surely some of you have opinions. Or email me at madworldtalk@gmail.com, madworldtalk@gmail. If you got something to say, don't sit on it. Say it. Without hearing from you, I'm sitting in a room talking to myself. Also, please leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It's the only way this podcast gets noticed instead of buried. I show up every day to call out people and news for what they are. Sure, you might hear it elsewhere, but not like this. I don't dress it up. I don't water it down. And I sure as hell don't run it through a filter. This has been A World Gone Mad. Monday's Fallout edition. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. I'll be back Wednesday. Because someone has to say the shit that no one else will. And apparently, that job's mine. Until then, Wolfpack listeners, stay skeptical, stay focused, and most of all, stay hopeful.